on all.
So we'll go on to 7.2, sitting as the Lake County Air Quality Management District Board of Directors, consideration of presentation regarding the Lake County Air Quality Management District requirements and current operational status. And we have a district manager or director or administrator.
Air pollution control officer.
Gearhart. I said all three just in case.
Slash.
No network.
All of the above.
While that's loading, I'll start by saying good afternoon. I was hoping it'd be good morning, but that's the way the day went.
At least it's not good evening.
Yes.
We're making up for last week.
Yet.
So I'm Doug Garrett. I'm the Air Pollution Control Officer with the Lake County Air Quality Management District. And quick synopsis of a few important things before the presentation is we have one new employee started yesterday. Yes. So we've hired one, and we have another one starting on Monday.
Sweet.
Coming. So
Perfect.
So we have him. Our first employee is at the computer doing all the training courses right now. So,
This is a fist pump moment.
yeah. So he'll be doing training courses probably pretty much the whole week because there's a lot of mandated training courses that just get them out of the way, get them done. And so in the next month or so, we will introduce them to the board here, and so you can meet the new people. So.
Is yours going in circles too? It's just you.
I know it.
Yeah.
See? It's been like that for a
It was
while
also on a
since we
Mac.
came back. But it was like that all the other
You're
day.
the one that kicked off for me and Jessica to get.
That's probably true.
Darn it.
I think Tom needs to come back to the speaker over here, reset all this. My computer's not working. I'm thinking.
There it goes. All right.
Perfect.
It's not working.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's perfect. So, okay, so there's the presentation that kind of covers some of the mandates, the basic mandates, and some of the current operational conditions or requirements or recommendations or status, kind of all those things as one. So, just to really start things off, it's what does the Air Quality Management District do? The mission and mandate of the district is to regulate sources of air pollution and protect public health. So that is our mandate, that is our mission. The district is a regulatory agency. We're created by state and federal mandates that regulate stationary sources of air pollution within the Lake County Air Basin. The main purpose of the district is to enforce local, state, and federal air quality laws, rules, regulations to meet the ambient air quality standards and protect public health. So that's the very basic definition of what the district does. Okay. Oh, you're ahead of me. Perfect. So the current status of air quality in Lake County, our attainment status, 2024 was our 35th year of clean air attainment. So we've had 35 years of meeting all standards, and we're still the only air district and air basin in the state of California to do that. So we have been, let's see, sorry. Yeah, so still a struggle. Many haven't met it, and very few can meet it due to other issues that they have that we don't. So, but generally, we are running in the 60 to 90% range of air quality standards. So we're bumping up to that border every year, and I mean we have been for probably 10 years. So it's really about the status of those standards. So if standards change will impact us more than anything. But that's one of those issues that kind of cover on the next slide. What does non-attainment mean? So I put a lot of information in the slides so we can make this available, and it's a lot easier for people to read and understand than it is to listen to me, because if I say things confusing, putting it in writing is, we spent time to make sure that that's clear. So I apologize if I'm talking a little bit too much and a little too, covering too many topics in one sentence. So, state, what does attainment mean? State and federal law require that an attainment plan with area source mitigation and rule modifications be in place, new prohibitory rules, loss of ag operation exemptions, loss of burn program flexibility. There's a lot of things that come with non-attainment, and those are the things that we're trying to avoid. So what can lead to non-attainment is probably more important than what happens with non-attainment. And there are many factors. Some of them we can control, some we don't. What we don't control is if EPA or the state change the standards. We don't control natural events. We don't control, enforce wildfires and things. So, but enforcing our rules, and dealing with the issues in the industries that we regulate, those are things that we can control to a certain extent, of course. There's, as you know, with every industry, there's always challenges sometimes, and compliance isn't always 100%. But for the most part, people do a good job when they know what they're supposed to be doing. So, but the whole goal of meeting standards is to maintain a public, level of public health that is acceptable. So the standards are based on public health studies. They're based on what is an acceptable risk. These are done by EPA and the state. And so that's really where it comes down to, is what's an acceptable risk. And we don't set the standards, but that's how they develop them, is based on public health and the health threats and risk. So, yeah. So in order to determine whether we meet standards, of course, we have air monitoring. So, we have our main station in Lakeport. Oh, there must be a, nope. Okay. So we have our main station in Lakeport, which that's the station we use to ensure, or to monitor for meeting all standards. We also have the Geysers Air Monitoring Program stations, which primarily are hydrogen sulfide, meteorology, and we do some particulate monitoring. We did more detailed particulate monitoring for 25 years, and with near negligible results, we've gone to a lower cost particulate monitoring, but we still do PM monitoring at all those sites. It's just a lower cost process. And then, just as an example of some of the other monitoring things that we do in the last 10 years, we have monitors set up, or we've had monitoring set up at the Clear Lake Vent site in Burns Valley Elementary School. We set up a monitor there for multiple years. We set up monitors around Bottle Rock Power due to community complaints when they were operating. We have the High Valley area. We did a lot of walk around, drive around surveys looking for hydrogen sulfide sources because we weren't finding them at the actual power plant. So we hike through the wilderness, drive through the wilderness, take trails and things, and try and find where they're coming from. And we had identified a number of them, and they've been dealt with for the most part, but things still happen. Cobb area, of course, we did a lot of monitoring after wildfires. We have portable particulate monitors that we can use in the field. We can deploy them, we can carry them with us, and we did a lot of that monitoring for months and months after each of the wildfires in more than just Cobb area, but we'd spent a lot of time up there during the cleanup process, especially. Now, the goal, of course, is to, one of the main goals is protect school children. So we have set up low-cost sensors at every school campus throughout the county, so that during wildfire events or other events, they have real-time data that they can use to make decisions on for the children's safety. We're working on those. They are limited lifespan sensors, so we do have to go out and start swapping out a lot of those as they come up to their life. They start failing and just dropping out. So we're at that point where we're seeing some of those dropping out. So we're going to start working on finding replacements for them. So.
Quick question on the Clear Lake vent. Is it like a SCADA monitoring where you get the data automatically yourself, or do you have to go there and collect it? And just very curious because it smells a whole lot in that area. Even when it rains, you could see it bubbling through the puddles. It's the vent is very real over there.
Right. Yeah, we don't currently do the monitoring at the moment because we had collected a lot of monitoring data, and that was used by the state and USGS and others to kind of figure out what the issue is. But no, we had to go on site because we had the ability to hook into the Wi-Fi at the school, so we were able to get some limited data, but we did go out on a regular basis to basically capture the higher level data. We had to calibrate and check instruments regularly because they require weekly service. So we were out there on a weekly basis, at least, during the several years that was in operation. The primary issues, of course, it's a natural fault zone, and there's methane and carbon dioxide, so some things that are not healthy, and but it wasn't a industrial source or anything that we could do anything about. But we were involved in developing that filtration system that is still sitting there, and that's helping. We haven't had any complaints in that neighborhood, recently, I should say, we haven't had complaints recently, but that's basically all that is doing right now is creating a shorter path for it and dispersing it at 20 feet in the air rather than on the ground level. So,
All right. Continue, please.
okay. What mandates affect the district? For anyone that we have California Health and Safety Code, the real quick reference, but I brought it just to show, all the flags are the things I deal with on a weekly basis. I'm looking up stuff all the time because that's our book that we have to comply with. So that's the California version of the Clean Air Act, and there's a lot of things in there that affect us on a daily basis. So the district has a lot of mandates. I put a few references in here. Section 40001, rules and regulations requires us to adopt rules to enforce the federal and state Clean Air Act and all applicable requirements associated with it. Let's see, district rules and regulations may, and at the request of the state board, shall provide for the prevention and abatement of air pollution episodes which at intervals cause discomfort, health concerns to, or damage to property or a significant number of persons or class of persons. So definitions on what we're supposed to do are extremely broad, and which makes things very complicated as well, as you know. So that's just the quick, here's why it's complicated. We have rules, we have things we have to do, and the definitions are not definitive as to you regulate this. It's anything that can even cause discomfort. We have to at least evaluate and determine whether there's a risk associated with that. So, and then next one. With that, we're looking at what are air contaminants, air pollutants. This is where we get into what affects you. So, what is an air contaminant that we regulate? Definition, as you see, is very broad. Each of these parts of an air contaminant, air pollutant have a health risk associated with them. So everything on there has a health risk, and different levels cause different chronic and acute or acute health outcomes. So some things have a immediate health risk, and some it's that long-term exposure health risk. So we've run into a lot of situations, especially recently with propane engines. The CO and NOx emissions from propane for the commercial size engines are actually causing high acute health risks to children. We had a facility that was putting one in next to a school, and they thought it was next to a shed. It was next to a preschool, daycare center at the school campus. And it was the risk that was going to be over 100 in a million. Our permitting threshold is 10 in a million for high risk. So in 20 a million, it's cut off, no permit. That's the thresholds that exist. So this was going to be well over 100 in a million risk just for that CO and NOx issue. So the things you don't expect, propane is clean, but it's clean for particulate, but not necessarily for all other health risks. So, okay. So how do we deal with this? We have authority to construct permits. And we go through the permitting process, we review everything. Before granting or denying an authority to construct for a stationary source or modification of provision, this lists out what we have to do. We have to require the applicant to submit information to sufficiently describe the nature and the amount of emissions, location, details, construction, everything of their equipment, and then we have to analyze the effects of that source or modification on air quality, on the community, on the health risks for the people around it. So that review is what takes us a significant amount of time, because we have to figure out all the different things that come out of that source. We have to look at every emission source, every point in that process, look for fugitive, where are fugitive emissions, where are the main emissions, what chemicals do they use, and each one of those chemicals has a health risk associated with it, so we have to evaluate how much chemical, where, and what's the risk, and what's the downwind risk and how far away. It's just a very slow but detailed process that we go through. So, okay. Yep. Permit system. Yeah. So again, another health and safety code section. This, for all existing permits, we're limited to issuing a permit for 12 months. So we can only issue a permit that's valid for 1 year. And each one has to be evaluated for compliance each year when we do the renewal. So every year when they renew their permit, we have to look at each one of those permits and evaluate them to ensure that they are complying with the conditions of their permit. So that's currently, I think, 670 permits that get reviewed every year for compliance while we're doing the renewals of each of those permits. So, and again, submittals have to be complete. The throughput report, their annual reporting to us with those renewals. If it's not complete, then we have to follow up with letters and enforcement because they're not reporting what they're supposed to. So we can't do that review for compliance if we don't have the details to know how they've operated throughout the year. So right now, currently our renewal period, we renew permits on November 1, but starting September 1st is when we ask for the data. So they have a 2-month window to get that data to us, and we do the renewals through that 2-month period. But their permits all expire October 31st, and the new permits start November 1st. Okay. So getting away from the stationary sources, now getting into burn permits. We have our online permitting system. There's a lot of information on this slide. But we have the online permitting system, and what that does, it was created in cooperation with CAL FIRE, South Lake County Fire, and we have taken that system over as they've no longer have staff or availability to run that program, or there's too many complexities and costs for them. So we're now running that, and we're hoping that we're finding a lot of quirks that, because we're getting the phone calls now where they were getting them in the previous years. So there are a lot of things that we're going to be updating over the next year to make that a much smoother process. Or we'll be doing our best to get it updated to eliminate some of those complexities that are causing problems. Permits can be obtained for burn piles. The online permits can be obtained for burn piles up to a 10-foot diameter. Anything over 10 foot, they need to get a smoke management plan, because that typically can't burn out in the 9 to 3 burn, normal burn day status. So if they're going to burn longer hours, then it's generally a smoke plan. And the bigger piles, of course, have a lot more smoke, so we have to evaluate more of the impact issue. There are some cases that, are different than that, but as a general rule, that's the process there. Parcels have to be 1.0 acres or greater to obtain a burn permit. We do have some options for smaller parcels, but as a general rule, again, 1.0 or greater, and that's the parcel of record as maintained at the assessor's office. So the assessor's records have to say it's 1.0 or greater in order for a permit to be issued for that parcel. So we've run into some issues and there were some quirks in the program, which we've gotten all squared away this year. We think there were a couple places where that was a hiccup and it took a little bit of work, but that is now, the process is working again, is working. So currently, since the beginning of burn season, over 1,400 permits have been issued through the online system. So we have quite a few people are getting that and are using it, and it's working well for them. Permits being issued online. Permits can be issued online, or they can come into the office. We have issued, I don't have the exact number on me, but probably in the 100 plus or minus range in person, just regular burn permits. So that's in addition to smoke management plans, just for the people that don't have internet access or can't print it, or there's different reasons that they're unable to do the online system or just don't want to do the online system. So they come into our office and we've issued those, helped them through the process and gotten the permits issued. So we're probably in that 100 to 150 range for that. Smoke plans, of course, have to be done in the office. They're done by appointment. Smoke plans typically take half hour or longer. Sometimes we can get them done faster for the people who get the same permit every year, but we try and schedule at least a half hour, because if something changes or they do new parcels or something, when we're getting a smoke plan permit or a smoke plan applicants coming in for a smoke plan, sometimes they are getting smoke plans for 10 different lots because they're managing all these different properties. So we're writing up 10 different facilities and 10 different conditions and for 10 different locations, because the weather and everything has to change. The conditions that are perfect for this location don't match what's good for another location in the county. So all those things get looked at as the process goes. This is just a reminder of all the different things that we do regulate, mostly for the public to be aware of all the different things that we're involved in. We have geothermal, we have concrete batch plants, gas stations, dry cleaners, landfills, composting facilities, vehicle painting facilities, body shops. Plus we have the Federal Clean Air Act, California Clean Air Act, air toxic control measures. We have the State Portable Equipment Registration Program, new source performance standards, new source review requirements, national emission standard for hazardous air pollutants. All these things are conflicting programs that, you probably have 5 different programs for the one pollutant that you're dealing with at a source. And each one of them has different requirements, of course. So it makes it a little more complicated. So as we go through city and building, county building permit sign-offs, this is something else that has become, actually, as we've cooperated more with the county, we're seeing a lot more of these. The county community development and the cities are sending more people to us for sign-offs because of all the additional complexities that have been coming up in recent years with all new legislation for air quality at the state level. And there's just so much to do, and no one is an expert. Even we're not experts. We have to look it up a lot of times. But we do review every single one that comes in. Generally, let me go back to my notes for this one because I'm talking too much off the cuff and missing details. The need for a district permit takes, that skipped. Okay, so district review, we review each one of these for sign-offs compliant with, we have to review them for compliance with all applicable regulations, rules, air toxin control measures and other control measure requirements. To expedite sign-offs, complete project descriptions are very helpful. Complete equipment descriptions are very helpful. And in many cases, we're not getting those, so we're figuring out what the project is as we get just the building, the demo permit sign-off or the building we're getting the single form without any project description. So we're having to go back and figure out what that project is before we can sign off, because we don't sign off on what we don't know. And what we're trying to do is do that initial evaluation so that when we sign off, we can tell the public or the person that's applying, what do they need to do going forward. So if that project that they're going to put in needs a permit for a generator, we're telling them, okay, this is what you need. This is the process. Here are the forms that you need as we do that sign off, so that going into it, they know where they're going, what it's going to cost, and how they're going to get there. And if we find, a few cases, we found generators that are not California compliant. And so we're telling, we go through that and we explain to them, okay, these don't meet the requirements, and here's why, and here's the issue. And so we help them figure out what they can do going forward, because the equipment that they're trying to put in is not something that will get permitted. So they can go through the whole process, and then we can tell them at the end, or we can tell them at the beginning. So we're trying to catch them and do that early so that they're not wasting time and money and ordering something that they then have to return. And we've run into this a few times even recently. We have a project that the EPA certification says not for sale in California. That's on the EPA engine certification for that engine for a generator that is currently installed. And they're trying to make that compliant, and we're trying to help them figure out how can we make that compliant? Is it even possible? Which has become much more complicated with EPA's current status. So just as an example of some of the issues that we're dealing with going forward. So in this process, we do have our office hours currently are 9 to noon. People can come in, drop stuff off. We have a drop box at our door. We have an email that people can email their project information to us, and we are responding to all of them. And for the most part, if it's a simple project, we're getting it to them the next day. We're getting it, reviewing it, and getting it back to them the next day. The more complex ones do take more time, and there are a few that have taken a lot more time because we're waiting on other agencies to respond to us, the state and the feds especially. So there are some cases where it's significantly delayed, and we haven't kept them up to date, but there's always issues with, yeah. So, yeah, so I covered all that. Okay. And then, why do we care about clean air? This is the studies are a little bit old, but this is the basis for the modern Air Resources Board and requirements that we have, and that is that premature deaths from particulate air pollution and other pollution are significant in California, and they can be reduced dramatically with small increments in cleaner air. So the cost of air pollution and asthma in California, just in 1998 was $1.3 billion. So the cost now significantly higher. So the offset of what does it cost to maintain clean air versus what does the health costs of not having clean air, it's a significant number there. So I didn't have time to go through and find you more recent studies, but these were ones that we had that were as up to date, are still relatively up to date. So, okay. And then this last slide. So our current office hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to noon. And then we have appointments basically from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. So if people are coming up to the door, we are trying to help them if we are available. It's just between that 8 to noon or 9 to noon, we are making sure that we have several people available to help people. But if we're doing monitoring or doing equipment or working in the lab and stuff, we're doing those in the afternoons after the normal office hours. And so as we get our staff up and trained, the new staff, so hopefully in 2-3 weeks, we'll be able to extend those open hours a little bit longer, but we want to give them a little time to at least be able to answer basic questions and take notes and be able to understand what they're being asked. So to kind of get them ahead of the curve before people start coming in and asking them complicated questions that cause problems. So that's where we are with our office hours. But we are reachable. We are generally responding to phone calls and messages within a half hour when at all possible. If we are in the office and available, we are responding quickly. We did have an issue last week where basically the whole staff was out sick. I was the only one, so I was kind of running around with trying to keep everything afloat and dealing with burners and things. And so, but with 3 people, if 2 people are out sick, it's very difficult to maintain that. So, but generally, as a rule, we are responding within a half hour, and we are getting back to people Monday through Friday during normal business hours and even after business hours. So, and then smoke plan, burn request, we are requesting that people call in by 3 o'clock the day before they want to burn, and by 3 o'clock on Friday if they want to burn on the weekends, just so we have time to check the forecast and get back to them before they want to burn. So if something comes up, we want to make sure we have enough time to actually respond to them and get them the approval that they need, so they're not waiting for us in the morning. That's the main reason for that. We are still taking calls in the mornings for people, but we do request that they call early if they know they want to burn, and that's so they're not waiting for us. And then you can get a hold of the district at 263-7000, our same number, and we have a general email box at lcaqmd@lcaqmd.net, where you can submit paperwork, ask questions, where that'll go to staff, and we are responding to that as soon as possible. So with that, I think I'm
So real
after the
quick,
questions.
I'm going to open it to the public first, and then we'll come back and our questions can go from there if there's anyone from the public.
Good afternoon, Tom Lasik. I just want to thank Lake County Air Quality Management District for helping us have some of the cleanest air in the state. Usually we win awards just about every year because it's pretty awesome, and my family marvels at how clean our air is. I do have a concern, and that is going through major use permits. I noticed that part of the process is that it goes through an agency review, and in many cases, Lake County Air Quality Management District is one of the agencies that reviews those permits and makes recommendations. And on a few that I've seen recently, and it's not just Lake County Air Quality Management District, some of the other interdepartmental agencies, we've noticed this as well, is they observe things that need to be changed, and they make a recommendation, and the recommendation isn't followed. And I'm just going to give an example for Lake County Air Quality Management District. In a recent permit, we noticed that Lake County Air Quality Management District, because of the amount of traffic on this unpaved road, recommended that it be paved and at a minimum be chip sealed. And the language would should be paved, should be chip sealed. And that was never put into the major use plan. I would recommend, not just for Lake County Air Quality Management District, but for the other agencies, if there's something that they feel needs to be done, that they use the, must include or shall include, instead of, well, it ought to have this, because that gets
Right.
misused.
We're
So-
just trying to stick to air quality. I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying about other agencies, but
Right, so, but on the Lake County Air Quality Management District, as a suggestion, as they do the language, to do it in such a way that it honors the requests and recommendations of your agency, and it's harder for it to be ignored or disregarded. Thank you.
all right. Any other public comment?
Margot Kambara. I would like to thank Air Quality Management for the fantastic job that you're doing to keep our air clean for 35 years plus. I'm going to ask dumb questions. You are the subject matter experts. You identify, contaminants such as odor, and what we're discovering now, especially with the county involved in commercial cannabis cultivation, that odor is a problem. Other municipalities have discovered that it is a problem that is going into courtrooms to be resolved. But you are the subject matter experts, and I was wondering if you have recommendations. I know at one time air quality was consulted, and then it was determined that you would not be involved in the commercial cannabis permit application process, okay, but that was years ago. It's a different time now, and I think we really need expertise, especially since there is not a good way to control odor for outdoor grows, and there's talk about cutting the setbacks to, oh gosh, it's at 200 feet now, but there's pressure to make it even smaller setback. We need science, and we could use that expertise. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public input? All right, I'll close public input and bring it back to the board. Supervisor Owen, I seen that you had your pen up.
Actually, Margot, that's exactly where I was going. So, good minds. I wanted to ask about the cannabis. I don't know. I know that the odor is real. And so I don't know if you guys, I know this is kind of a new industry, so it probably has not been under your purview in the past, but I'm wondering if it's time to perhaps look at that to be able to control. And I also don't know if there's any particulars or anything that is hazardous that comes with that odor. Because I know it's really unpleasant, and I know I've said this up there before, but just not have to live with that. We bought property next door to stop a grow from going in, and that was expensive. But we really didn't want to have to smell that.
Right.
All right, I think that gets more into like discussions with ordinances and things like that. So, but thank you for those comments. Any others from the board? Well, not hearing any. Thank you, Doug, for giving that presentation so the public can know what's operating, how you're improving, or how you're coming along, because I know you were struggling at one time a couple months back. You didn't have anybody and you had to close.
That's really awesome.
So this is a good update. Thank you very much for that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.